A bird's eye view of the capital would be peppered by real estate that you could bet your bottom dollar is either owned, developed, financed or managed with BNP Paribas Real Estate's able assistance. Participation in a site like this shows BNP Paribas Real Estate has its vision firmly fixed on location, because this is what's tipped to be London's most exciting new business address. We've come along to the City of London to meet up with Dan Bailey, Managing Director of BNP Paribas Real Estate's Central London business, to find out more about the property market in the year when it really can compete for gold. Tell us more about the Olympic regeneration of the East End and your involvement in the international quarter in Stratford City.
Well, the Olympics, I mean, it's obviously exciting, isn't it? And I'd be dishonest if I wasn't saying at the moment what I'm really excited about is this coming summer and hopefully seeing us win lots of medals. But actually, from a real estate perspective, what Stratford has got in terms of the amenity that it will offer, in terms of the legacy of the stadium and all that green space and the amenities, the transport infrastructure, and what London lacks, which is the availability of sensible, affordable housing with good commuting times into central London. I think it's a really exciting opportunity for London to provide what I think is what London and most global cities now want, which is a proper mixed-use environment. So retail, well, we've got the retail, haven't we? We've got that little shopping centre called Westfield. The amenity, well, an Olympic Park, what could be better than that? Residential, well, we've got that with the Athletes' Village being converted to that. And the final place is a place to work. And our involvement on the latter involves advising Lendlease, who own a lot of the land surrounding the Westfield shopping centre, and they have a consent for over 3 million square feet of office space. And I'm convinced that is one of the future lungs of central London from a living point of view, but also from a living and working perspective. So it will take time, but it's a very exciting prospect.
BNP Paribas Real Estate is developing a 350,000 square foot Grade A office building in King's Cross. Within your bid, there was a commitment to achieve a high environmental performance. Can you unpack what that target means?
Yes, I mean, it's interesting. I think it's interesting. We've been talking about Stratford, which I see as the future, the next big mixed-use development in London, following on and partnering actually with King's Cross, which is another really exemplary scheme where you're bringing together offices, residential housing. And both of these schemes, what they have in common, you've got enough critical mass so that you can give people what they want, both from a very tangible perspective, but also from a sustainability perspective. So one of the things at King's Cross, there's a major combined heat and power plant which will help serve the whole development, which automatically, if you're developing an office building or a school or a residential building, gives you a head start over a standalone development. And from our perspective, we see it again as an example. If you're going to be developing a new office building in London at the moment, you have to be setting yourself apart and giving yourself a USP, and sustainability is one of the ways that one can do that. My personal view is that yes, you have to be able to tick some boxes. For instance, we're aiming for a building that will be BREEAM excellent, and that is a measurable third-party way of looking at the building. I also think that it's really important. It's the day-to-day business as usual of how you manage a building and ensure that there isn't undue waste, and the way that the building is fitted out is done in a fine and proper manner. But actually, from going back to the fundamentals, if you've got combined heat and power, if you're sitting on top of the best transport node in London in terms of mainline railways and underground stations, you're already starting to tick so many of those boxes. It's practical. You could have a marvellous building with lots of windmills on the roof, allegedly generating energy where actually they don't generate very much, but situated too far from public transport, and therefore people start to drive and you're defeating the object. So I think it's a common sense view which we take on that.
Are companies taking on board this sustainability theme in their projects?
Yes, generally, but I say that yes cautiously, and I think most occupiers look at it from a pragmatic perspective. Some of them have a little bit of a tick box exercise of the measures that they want out of the building, the bricks and mortar of the building. But most of them are more interested in actually how landlords are planning to manage the building from a day-to-day perspective. And that starts in the lease negotiations and the degree to which leases are green. And by green leases, that covers potentially a multitude of sins. But in practice, that normally is something called a memorandum of understanding that sits beside a lease, which gives certain undertakings on the part of the landlord and the tenant or tenants as to how they're going to operate in that building. And again, from a personal perspective, from our view corporately, that is the best way to work. And that starts with managing agents of buildings, letting agents of buildings and the owners of buildings all really understanding what they're trying to do. And luckily we have a strong property management team, and one of my mantras to my leasing colleagues is we need to be aligned with them and understand things. And again, going back to my analogy, you can have lots of sort of wonderful manifestations, physical manifestations on buildings like wind turbines, but actually things like having proper energy metering so that occupiers can see how much energy they're using, managing agents being able to show one occupier that they're using 20 or 30% more energy than the person on the floor below, and giving them some ideas about how they might save their energy uses. That's sensible sustainability in my mind.
Dan Bailey, Managing Director of BNP Paribas Real Estate Central London Business, thank you very much for talking with us.
A pleasure.